Welcome back to the Context Coaching Podcast. We are joined this morning by Mike Nackord, who is the head baseball coach at Mendocino College, and he is a lecturer at Sonoma State University in their kinesiology department. Coach, appreciate you taking the time this morning to jump on the pod and have some conversation.
Thank you. I appreciate being here and having an opportunity to speak to you all. So thank you.
Let's get into it. So, take us through your background. How did you get into coaching to start with? What was your athletic background? What was the steps along the way before you hung it up and put on the coaching stirrups in your case as a baseball coach? And any stops along the way? What was the process like for landing your first head job? Any assistant jobs? Any movement back and forth? I'm always just curious about how people landed where they are.
Absolutely. Seeing some of the questions makes you reflect on your life, certainly. And you're always learning in this business, even though you're the coach. And I think that if you think you've learned everything, you haven't. So going with that, it really starts back to when you're a kid. And I was really fortunate to have really good mentors in my life, coaches that cared. And so starting back, I think I started playing baseball when I was about 8 years old. My parents got a divorce, and introduction to baseball was a big piece of my life. And as the term was said back then, I was a latchkey kid. So latchkey kids, you're basically left on your own when you get off the school bus. So I was raised on a small little ranch in Katati. So I had all the dogs and the cats, and I couldn't wait till my dad would get home from work as we go out and play catch in the backyard, the American tradition. And so I really owe a lot to my dad for being that person who we just that kind of bonded our relationship. We learned about baseball, and he became a coach, and he played some sports in high school, and he was a jack of all trades, very smart man. And the thing that I was always very proud about my dad passed away about 12 years ago, but the thing that I really appreciate about my dad is he got into coaching, and he coached me and a lot of my friends in baseball. And the thing that I always reflected about that just made me proud of him is all my friends and teammates respected him a lot. They'd always ask about, how's your dad? How's he doing? I'm like, hey guys, I'm your friend. All right. So they really appreciate him. And I think it just really came back to how much he cared about them. He took a personal investment with them. And that's really a big piece about coaching. It's, yes, we have the X's and the O's, and everybody's trying to win a championship and get scholarships or whatever that might be. But the grassroots of it is you're working with people. And if you're trying to get people to do things that are extraordinary, there's that buy-in and that trust that you have to have. And I think that's something I learned that was crucial from my dad. So I was always appreciative of him. So I never knew I'd really want to get into coaching then, but I was inspired to play and such. Played all the way through Little League, high school. I was a good pitcher and I was around a lot of great players. A lot of guys that I played with went on and played. Some of them went and played in the major leagues. But I think the other person in my life was my college coach, John Geltz, who was 39 years at Sonoma State. And I got to play for him, and he would be the kind of coach that you would call a player's coach. As another person, he was back then, I'm certain if you're growing up playing with coaches, it was just the real hard ass. We're going to break you down and make you feel like this big, and then we're going to rebuild you up. And so you learn along the way. I had different coaches before I got to Coach Geltz, and the bad ones or the good ones. You try to take a piece from everybody, and somewhere subconsciously, I would always think that's not how I want to be a coach, or that's how I would like to be a coach. And you start building this platform for yourself. And so playing for Coach Geltz was awesome. He allowed you to be you, your character, your personality, moving forward as a team. We would bring our own uniqueness and talents to the table, and he'd allow you to do that. And so that was something that I think just really propelled us. I was a part of a championship team that year I played for him. And I got to play a little bit of professional baseball. I fooled somebody to pay me $600 to toss the ball around a little bit. So I wasn't, I would say, a person or a player that was a high prospect or anything like that. I was just very motivated, and it was a challenge to do my very best. And I wanted to do it or go as far as I could. So I took all those lessons and skills, and I think somewhere along the line, I became a coach. And you talk about where we, along our path and our journey, is how you become a coach. When I finished playing a little bit of minor league baseball after Sonoma State, I played a lot of semi-pro ball, continued to play. I'm in my 20s. But you got to make money. You have to make money. And so I was a bartender for many years. And I moved down to San Diego and I got a really good job on the beach for about 7 years and made a lot of money doing that and playing baseball. But what I learned in that business, in the restaurant business and the bar business, is how to communicate, how to think quickly, think on your feet, adjust on a moment's notice, and get people to want to come back. So it's your personality, you're developing on your character. And it's, how do you all do that? You're out here pouring drinks and making money and all this other stuff, but there's a lot that goes into that. And so my subjects back then were basically college kids that I was catering to. And fast forward, I just switched the venue. Instead of being a bartender, now I became a lecturer, and now I'm in a classroom with the same age group, but it's more educational. So I took a lot of those skills and applied that to coaching. And I would say in about 2007, I turned about, I think it was 30 or 31. And I knew my heart, I wanted to go back to Sonoma State. I want to get in baseball again and coach. And I always knew that. And so I called up Coach and I said, Coach Geltz, I'd like to come back and get involved again. And he says, come on. So I moved back up to Rohnert Park. And he says, the only thing is I'm going to insist that you earn your master's degree. And I was very intimidated with my education. I did what I had to do to get through and be eligible as a player. And so I was very insecure about my academics. So if you were to ever ask me, I would be teaching in a college class, I would have laughed at you 25 years ago. So with that being said, I did my master's degree in kinesiology and started being a teacher's assistant, and they helped me out, started to lecture for classes, and then they hired me as a lecturer. And now I teach coaching education classes. So go figure. So that's a gist of it. It's nothing to make a movie about, but it's certainly along those paths. You come across a lot of people in your life, good and bad or indifferent, and you try to take a little bit from them and wrap it up into your own philosophy. So one thing we talk about is developing your coaching philosophy. So when I present to my team, these are our goals. This is what we're trying to get to, sustain as a unit. Yeah, it's been quite of a journey. That's a little bit of my background.
Great. We missed the steps. You were at Sonoma State from 2007 until when, before you pivoted to Mendocino College?
Just recently, when Coach Geltz was done at Sonoma State, so this was last year, August, I applied for the job at Mendocino College. Nobody was going for the job because it's not a high-paying job. It's a part-time job. And obviously being in coaching for 17 years, I mean, I coached players that are now head coaches and been head coaches a lot longer than I have. So it was very unique. The people being under Coach Geltz and the other coaches that had been with for so long, I really appreciated where I was at, and I had no ambition necessarily to go be a head coach. But as things turned, there was an opportunity, and so I took the job in August of 2024 and came up and interviewed. I have a really good athletic director up here, Matt Gordon. I wouldn't have taken the job if I didn't feel comfortable with the athletic director. He's a former baseball coach there at Mendocino College from years back. And so I feel like there's support there. We don't have a ton of money. In junior college, you got to raise the money for that. But with that being said, I have a beautiful ballpark. To be honest with you, it's really easy to recruit because you just bring the kids onto the field and it's a done deal. So that's when I took over this job. So I took over late and it was a big scramble. I only had 10 kids show up the first meeting because Mendocino College program was in shambles a little bit. They had coaching changes, and again, it's not a high paying job. So there wasn't a real culture that was set here. It was back when I was playing, Mendocino College was a formidable opponent. I remember back in the late 90s, Coach Kevin Smokum, he really built up this program up here. And every time we had played Mendocino College, we're in for a battle. But over the years, things happen and dynamics change. So here I am.
In the world of hindsight is always 2020, it looks like your timing on taking that job was perfect given what transpired with Sonoma State athletics this year. Can you give a quick soundbite on that for people who aren't aware, and just what that means to you as an alum and how you're trying to take some of those lessons with you as you go into this next space to hold on to some of that experience that no one will ever get to have again, at least in the immediate future?
It's awful. It's a shame, to be honest with you. And it was something that we'd seen coming a long time ago, but nobody really wanted to do anything about it. I don't want to point fingers and all this other stuff, but things happen for a reason. And when you don't have people working And you're a small unit. Sonoma State was a grassroots university. They didn't care about athletics way back then before coach took it over, and they still don't care about athletics. It's obvious.
And just for the listeners, Sonoma State eliminated their entire athletic program in March. They made the announcement, I think, maybe April. And then
Yes.
they finished their last athletic seasons here when school ended.
Yeah. Yeah, it's unbelievable. Yeah, I'm sorry. I feel like, oh, you should know this story. I've been living it my whole life. Yeah, it's unfortunate. Low enrollment, the school, you didn't have the drive. I don't think you have to go out and earn it. You have to work. Like coming to Mendocino College, nobody's giving me a paycheck. Nobody's giving me donor money. I have to go out, outreach. You have to sell yourself. And I think what happens, you get comfortable in a nice little campus. And like I said, athletics is just over here. Who cared a lot were the players and the coaches. But then you got the rest of the school over here where it's just a little segment. And that's what happened at San Francisco State. They cut their baseball program over there too, and a
Yeah.
couple other.
And that might be just the first layer of many, right? So who knows? What I do know, as having some close friends there where you were and having sent players there over the years, the athletic tradition is great. People believe in it. They love their experience, and it's just unfortunate. And life's not fair. So here we go. Mendocino College, year one. It's perfect timing for this. What did you realize right away after 17 years working for a collegiate baseball legend that you need to figure out? You thought you had the answers, and then nope, you don't have them, coach. Figure it out.
I honestly, as long as I've been under Coach Gels, I never felt like I knew it. I know I'm searching for answers. What I can share with you is what I've learned in this past 9 months. And the coaches that I have with me, I'm grateful. The guys that are coaching with me because they do this on a volunteer basis. But we've all coached together, either with Coach Geltz or we've been connected for many years. And so they're actually older than I am, and they have head coaching experience. So they're helping me. So they've been coaching me to be a head coach. So I feel grateful for that. But with that being said, they kept telling me, hey, you're going to experience, and excuse my language, first year coaching shit. And I'm like, what do you mean? What are you talking about first year? Anything that can happen, it's going to happen to you in the first year. And I'm like, great, here we go. I moved up to Ukiah and I got settled in. I've got one of my coaches, he'll come and stay with me, which is cool because we always talk about the process and what we need to do. But within 6 weeks, I lost one of my best players, the best player, probably. And he died 3 times in a bad, awful car accident. He survived, but being the head coach and knowing I went to go see my player in the hospital, it was just awful. He lost his good friend in this car accident that happened. It was a freak accident, and let alone just losing one of your better players, but you know how precious life is. And then the ultimate responsibility. Now, I've been a part of Sonoma State for a long time. We've had some tragedies along the way, but when it's you as the head coach, it's ultimately you really feel the weight of that. And but thankfully, the young man, he's back on his feet and he's coming out and hanging out and trying to support him. So that was a major upset right off the bat. And I'd barely been here for 2 months, and that takes place. So a lot of things happen. One of my pitchers, in fact, about a week after that, he's throwing a bullpen. His right arm snapped in two. Those are freak accidents. That doesn't happen. I've seen it happen a couple times in my career, and I'm standing there, and the kid's arm just went flopping. You got, here it is. So poor kid, he's got like 18 bolts, surgery, all these things.
And in our era, like Dave Dravecki, there's other shit. Like that's scary.
Yeah, real scary. Here's this kid, and this kid followed me up from Sonoma State. He's from Nevada, his parents, and I'm just like, I'm handling it. I'm not like freaking out, but just little things just start. You're like, we haven't got to the dang season yet. So a lot of stuff that was taking place. And then we fast forward, we get to the January where we start our spring training and stuff. And I feel really good about our team. Like we brought in some kids last minute. Like some of the kids followed me up from Sonoma State that got cut from the new coach up there or down there at that time. And I said, hey, there's an opportunity up here. And I needed players. And they came up and they made the move up here. And so we're working out pretty well. Things start off shaky part of the season. And we start off really slow. We barely won a game in our first series. And by the time we got to our conference play, we had only won 3 games. People start questioning things. Even though it's a junior college, but players like this, that, and the other thing, we start questioning ourselves. That's part of competition. You're like, what are we doing? And everybody's upset and this, that. And I'm just trying to keep my cool not be Joe cool, but just be calming and not to lose my shit on everybody because that's not going to solve the problem. So the one thing I went back to, and the one thing that I really learned from Coach Geltz, and it was very interesting, the 17 years that I spent with him, we've been to the College World Series a couple times for Division II. We've won numerous championships. I've seen many guys out of our program sign and be professionals. In the later part of our career, we lost. We were struggling to get into the playoffs. So losing games was difficult, and to see that and how to process that. So I took all those lessons and applied it early, and just we remained consistent in our messaging. What is our standards? What's our culture? What are we trying to develop? And don't waver from that. And so we stuck with it. So we just kept telling the kids, we still believe in you. We're going to not stop coaching you. If you quit on us, that's the only time we'll quit on you. But we will not quit on you if you keep trying. We just kept with that messaging. We just kept working at the fundamentals, just kept going, and we get into league. And we play some really tight games against the top teams in our league. Mendocino has been in last place, or near the bottom for a few years. So nobody expects us to do anything. So I would say that's the one thing. We didn't have a whole lot of pressure, so anything would be a positive thing. We get smoked the first couple of series, and then we faced Laney College, who ended up winning the whole conference this year, and we had a walk-off win against them. And that was huge, huge. And then we won our first series against Solano Community College. We won 2 out of 3. And now we're like starting to point it out to them. So, see, starting to believe now, guys. And so some things started sparking. And so you, as a coach, you start jumping on this. And you just got to point them out to the guys because everybody gets tunnel vision. Even myself, we just get so laser focused that we're not looking at the big picture of what's going on. So we just kept reminding them, hey, take a look around. What are we doing? And so sure enough, second half of the season, we won 10 of our last 15. We ended the season on a 6-game winning streak. One of my pitchers had back-to-back complete games. We outscored our opponents, I want to say 93 to 37. I can't remember. But yeah, our guys, I felt like we could play anybody. Santa Rosa JCU's ranked. I felt like they're fantastic. I'm not being delusional, but when you're hot as a baseball team, you're like, let's go, let's bring it on. So I was really proud of these guys. They stuck together. They believed in themselves. They didn't lose faith in us as coaches. And the reward was a big payoff. We went from 7th place to 4th place. We narrowly missed the playoffs. So very proud of that. We had 3 guys named to all conference honors, and a few of them got some scholarships to some schools. So we're really proud of it. And it started turning heads now. So now I got kids calling, Coach, we want to come play for you. And that's what it takes. That's what it takes. You get winning's the great deodorant, right? You look like a genius when you're winning. You look like an idiot when you're not, right? So it's just a matter of what you're doing. Geez, look, you lose all your hair because of all this stuff.
Or like me, you just go gray.
Hey, I got gray hair too. I just shaved before we got on.
That's awesome. I have one follow-up that's very front of mind, and then one I want you to go a little deeper on the what did you learn? Because the intention is before or when you took the job, right? Had you blew through all 250 of these episodes, right? You got 250 answers to, hey, what'd you realize you need to figure out that then prepares you as you go in for some of these things, right? So I'm always looking for what are some of the things that you weren't thinking about that like admin, right? Like fundraise, whatever it happens to be. So after this first question, come back and just go a little bit deeper on that. But I'm curious, right? Having a catastrophic situation like you did with the car accident, and you said you realize how precious life is. How did that change your approach, and how did you take that with you into the season as you try to serve these young people that are going through this process that you have 2 years in theory at best to lay hands on and give them something to take with them? And how did that change your mindset versus the previous 17 years, and how did that shift your approach?
I don't know if it's any different than how I was as an assistant. Obviously, being a head coach, I am ultimately responsible, but you have to be mindful. Not only has one kid been affected by this awful accident, it's his teammates and some of his best friends that are on this team. And I had to monitor that quite a bit. I had to check in with them. It's just, honestly, you're a big brother to these kids, and you have to treat it as such. So always checking in. You can't just assume they're doing all right, because you'll go, hey, Billy, how you doing? Oh, I'm good, coach. But you got to look a little further and stay on top of it. Don't you yourself. And here's another thing. Not only are you checking in on them, you got to check in on yourself. And I think that's a big piece that what I'm learning to deal with. There's a lot of stress involved, right? You're like, how are you having stress? And you play sports. What's the stress? Like, are you kidding me? If you've ever competed or you're trying to organize and you manage people, just dealing with people overall is stressful. And I enjoy it, trust me, don't get me wrong. You have a purpose in what you're trying to do. So trying to get people to see that same thing, and then as events happen in the course of a season, what's your playbook? How are you going to handle this? What can I do? No situation is going to be the same. There's similarities, but are you prepared? You have to have that not spontaneous judgment, but just a spontaneous way of thinking that when something comes up, it's okay, I've been something through this before. How am I going to handle this? How is this person? And how does this affect the rest of the team? So just having an understanding, and really it's just having an understanding who you are as a person, developing you. And if you want to create that in them and how they have to deal through obstacles in their life, you take it. Here's an analogy that we like to use. And this is something I learned from Coach. We all have situations in our life. There's death, there's life, there's taxes, there's breakups, there's happiness, all of it. But when things hit the fan, when shit hits the fan, it's like we can either make it a mountain, right? And that's really hard to get over, or we can minimize it the best we can and shorten it down to a speed bump. Either way, we got to find a way through it. So the most important thing is just how we process stuff, how we think about it. That's the most powerful thing that we can control as human beings. So in baseball, a lot of people think, oh, you guys are always cocky and arrogant. Yeah, because this game's built on failure, right? So failure is just all about this game. People get paid millions of dollars to fail 70% of the time. Who in their right mind would ever pay somebody to do that? Baseball. So we're always dealing with a lot of failure. And I think that's our greatest strength, is to learn how to manage that and to forecast opportunity and optimism in this game. Because a lot of kids can go south with it. Oh, I struck out 4 times. How do we shine a better light on that? So dealing with the tragedy of losing a player, nearly dying, how does that affect the other kids on the team? How does that affect the community? And how does that affect you? I don't have a straight answer. I really don't. I could just share my experiences. And I think it's up to each of us to learn how to manage that and how to work through that. And I don't think there's any one way to do it. And I think just being truthful and honest about that and just being there for people is a big deal. And I think if you show up for people, that's more than half the battle. I don't know if I answered your question the right way, but that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, number one, there's no right way. It's all about stories, right? It's all about shared experiences, which is what you just noted. And I think you're spot on, right? Showing up is, I would say, more than half the battle. I tell my own children, 90% of life is showing up. Everything else will come with that. But when you tap out all the time, then you're just giving other people the opportunity to show up. So I love that analogy and that statement at the end. And I want to actually go back to the speed bump or mountain to talk about, what did you learn right away that you needed to figure out? What were some of each of those? Were there any of those, right? Things that you I didn't know how to do that. Thanks. Thanks, AD.
Yeah. You try to prepare as much as you can, right? And I think the only thing you can prepare is for chaos. Expect the unexpected. That's the thing you really prepare for. And I didn't really experience anything I haven't come across yet. Obviously, I haven't even done a whole year here yet as the head coach. But I've gone out and I've tried to make my relationships in the community, and I'll continue to do that. I made my
Which is
relationship.
super important. Why?
Yep. Why is it important?
Yeah, for people that aren't,
Yeah.
who don't have that front of mind yet in their particular job, that being involved in the community, whatever community means at your institution, is transformational for your program.
Hugely. Absolutely. If you look at the College World Series, if you follow baseball in the College World Series, you look at Louisville or Murray State or Coastal Carolina and some of these schools, heck, even LSU is a powerhouse. All these schools, they developed in their communities. There's a reason why they're big time sports. People follow them. There's a ritual, there's a philosophy, there's this idea of greatness or whatever they preach to. So getting here in this community, I see this opportunity here. It's here. They want it. We're doing summer camps right now. The excitement to see these kids on our field and to be around our players, it's magnifying. It's awesome. because I remember being that age. And that's something I try to explain to our players. I try to expose them. Hey, remember when you're 8, 9 years old, 10 years old, and you saw those guys chewing seeds and had beards and all this other stuff? You're giving that back. So that's part of creating that culture and that community. And the parents come up. People are really nice up here. That's something I really notice. I'm like, you don't even know me yet. Why are you so nice to me?
Small town folk.
Oh, it's awesome. And they love their sports and they're just dying. They're telling me this. I'm not making this up. We're just dying for baseball. We're dying for football. We're dying for, and they just want to be able to come out. We had a fall baseball game, to give you an example, and we're playing College of Redwoods. This is fall. We're talking like in October, right? It's fall baseball. You got some family and whatever. And anyways, I'm in the dugout and I stepped out. I'm like, I asked some of my players, I go, is this all your family here? No, coach, that's half the town. I'm like, oh my God. It was like they really wanted to see some baseball. So it was really exciting. Just the personal messages that we receive and the accolades and things like that. And people are cheering us on and rooting us on. It's a big deal. So I'm really excited what is in the forecast for us and to continue to do that. I'm sorry, I got a little sidetracked in your question, but
No, it's perfect. This is part of the dialogue in the back and forth. Let me ask this then. If you were at Sonoma as an athlete, you went away and played other places, you came back to Sonoma for 17 years, now you're here. What's the best thing that you do in your program that has the largest ripple effect on culture that you brought with you from your experiences? And this is what we're doing, period, hard stop, here's why. And what's something maybe you've evolved on your own now that will go with you to all of your future stops?
certainly. I've had to adjust because being at Sonoma State University, you're dealing with 4-year university level students. So you got upper classmen and lower classmen. And the way you recruit, especially Division II, you really recruit heavily out of the JUCOs, junior college level. So you're primarily working with juniors and seniors. These kids have already been through the gauntlet at that level. I'm not saying we had some fantastic freshmen and some of our sophomores in our program over the years, don't get me wrong, but I would say 80% of your athletes are that age level. They're 21, 22 years old. There's that development in their brains where it's night and day in their maturity process, psychologically and physically. So I've been spoiled for 17 years working with kids at that age. And they don't take shit either. They'll question everything. But what I've learned, and I've worked with 17, 18-year-olds, don't get me wrong, but now that's all I have. And the one thing I've really learned is they're very impressionable. Because like you said, it's a little bit glorified high school, really. And I played junior college, and I remember what that was like. And I was very appreciative because the coaches that I had were very instructive. They really taught me how to play the game itself. And so I'm taking a lot of my experience when I was a student athlete back then, coupled with my experience as an athlete and now as a coach, and to be mindful of the fact that, hey, these kids are 17, 18, 19 years old. They do stupid shit, a lot of stupid shit. And so to be patient with it and to treat them with kid gloves. I'm not a yeller and screamer, but I found myself being a lot more vocal and just a lot more demanding, I would say, and have to be consistent with the messaging. I would never break down a kid. I would never make him feel stupid or disrespectful because that's not how I wanted to be coached. And I've been kicked off my college teams before, high school, you name it, for speaking up. And you don't need to talk to me in a certain way or call me a piece of crap to make a point. You can raise your voice and be demanding. I respect that. So I get that. So that's how I want to treat my players. And I know that because the kids come back and they say, Coach, thanks for pushing me. They might not agree with me or they might be upset with what we have at the moment. But once they see the light and they start seeing a little bit of what we're trying to teach them and push them forward, the buy-in starts happening. And something you had mentioned, it's a story. You're trying to create a story, right? I can sit here, we could talk X's and O's. Okay, great. Put a bunt down, sacrifice. Yeah, how do you do that mechanically? I'm sorry. That to me is boring. Yeah, we all know that's what we all practice.
I concur.
Right? It's okay, but that's great. Everybody could do that. I could get a book and let's go do that. But how do you inspire people? How do you inspire them to do the things that really suck all the time? And it's got to be repetitive. If you're going to be good at something, you don't have to be the most talented person, but if you want to be good at something, it's just over and over again. Create an experience, create the idea, create the story in our mission or whatever that might be. And the personalities that come into your program help develop that character and that story. And so one thing I laid out in the beginning was I give the kids like their little paper of our philosophy. It's a culmination of what we want as a program together. Basically, and I know it sounds terrible, but we're all brainwashing ourselves to act as one, right? That's how sports, right?
1,000%.
Yeah. It's we're all brainwashing ourselves to act as one, to function together, right? And I'm not saying we can't go out and act on our own and stuff for us to be successful. So we have to think alike. We all have to think in the same manner for us to perform and execute and do all these things. So creating a story. And the one thing I'm going to be working on this year, it's not just my story. It's not just our coaches' stories, because we all have personal interests in why we're here. And we're all going to bring that to the table. We're going to put this on the table together. Players and coaches, what do you want out of this program? What are you trying to do? You trying to get a scholarship? You trying to start? Or you just, whatever it might be to elevate your game. So let's throw it on the table. And let's do a little word salad with this. Let's make our story. Who are we going to be this year? Last year, we were a bunch of scrappers. Nobody cared about us, and we were getting kicked in the nuts and this and that and the other thing. So we fought back and we made something of ourselves. But this year is going to be different. Everybody starts with a clean slate. Whether you're an all-conference player or you're the dude that sat on the bench and got the water for the umpires.
How are you planning on navigating? And I know the last 3 years was very different than your first 14 with the transfer portal and everything. But at the high school level, at the 4-year level, even at the Division II level, you're finding success in a 5-year build, right? Freshman red shirt, boom, all the way through. And now you are basically working on a 1 year-to-year deal, just like all of college seems to be now. So how do you shift that blueprint to a different blueprint that allows you to not have the same success outcomes per se, but have the same lasting impression on those athletes that make them want to come back the same way the Cossacks/Sea Wolves always have?
It's an investment into each other. It's a personal investment. And it just comes back down to you can never care about each other too much. You might be pissed off at me today or upset, or you don't like what I had to say, but you got to know at the end of the day that I care about you just like everybody else on this team, and we're only trying to move in a direction. So developing that trust and the loyalty. So that this is a good piece, loyalty. So everybody's on a 1-year deal. And we just have to adjust as players and coaches and how that works. I'm not going to sit here and change, oh, I don't like it. It's everybody's this. You can either bitch and moan and complain about how the transfer portal this. Hey, look, I transferred 4 times, okay, in college before there was even a transfer portal. Okay. So that's just the way it is.
So you're the reason we have it?
Basically, I had a chip on my shoulder and I didn't like some of my coaches and I acted like a baby at times. I'll be honest with you.
Great. Let's dive into that. How did that inform your own approach and how you see kids and how you try to meet them where they are, even when you're on completely different pages?
100%. You know what? Kids fuck up. I can swear on this thing.
Absolutely. And what I like to say in regards to that is, especially as a high school coach, I try to remind myself at 50,
Yeah.
I was at 24 coaching. These are all age appropriate mistakes. And how do I keep that front of mind when I'm dealing with it rather than imploding?
100%. You just got to understand, I came from, like I said, I got kicked off my high school team. I got kicked off one of my junior college teams. I butted heads with coaches. And then I found, but like I said, going back to what I talked about, you find these little niches. Who's the coach that I want to coach to be? And you take all these pieces. So I think the one thing is, as a player, I always want to feel like the coach had my back, even when I screwed up. I'm not saying he's let me slide, but he still stood up for me and helped me work through some problems. And that's the kind of coach I want to be. That's the kind of coaches I have with us. I don't the coaches that I work with, they're not assistant coaches, they're head coaches, but that's our mission. So I want them to understand, like, hey, we understand you're going to mess up, but you got to own up to it. And there are consequences to things, and we have to learn, myself included. I think there's that transparency and that vulnerability that you show them. And they're like, oh, okay, coach has been there before. I get it. So that's honestly, I think when kids see that or players see that and they know that you're just as human as they are, I think that's where you get that buy-in and that loyalty. Because everybody says there's not a lot of loyalty. I go, bullshit. You got to go earn their loyalty.
No doubt. And I think that the relational piece rests at the foundation of that. You made a comment, and I'm not going to get this exactly right, but you have disagreements, you have fights, whatever, but you can never care about each other enough to try to bring it back together, even if you don't always land on the same page. So I think that's a great way to frame that and the importance of relationship as you're trying to build something that may only be a year repeatedly. It's a great mindset going into that. At Sonoma State, and I'm going to keep going back there because I'm intimately familiar with the place,
Oh, yeah.
is small community, small athletic department. You guys are all pretty much sharing the same hallways with other coaches. And I'm always curious in this era of sports specialization how we can push back against it because I believe it's ruining athletics. And the gist of this is what have you learned watching other disciplines that you've been able to steal and apply to baseball? And what have you been able to see, observe, have conversations? Rich connected me with Amiria. She had one of the all-time episodes on this thing, which just shows me how close that department is. But I'm curious always, what am I doing as a coach to glean information from a non-basketball person because I can learn just as much? So what have you observed, picked up over the years from people that got nothing to do with baseball?
It's interesting that you had Amelia on here because I've used her as my guest lecturer in my coaching classes. And I've learned so much from
And all
her.
y'all should go back and listen to her episode.
Yeah, I could probably say it verbatim, but one of the things that I picked up from her, and there was a question in the class, in our class. It was a great question by one of the students. And they asked her, "What do you do to motivate your athletes?" And she goes, that's not my job to motivate you. It's not my job." And I was, isn't that what we always talk about? How do I motivate players? She goes, "I feel it's my job to inspire you, to give you purpose and have goals and things," right? So there's a difference. And for me, that really, I've taken that now from her. And obviously, she's been really successful. She just took the head coaching job at College of Marin. And so she's in our conference now. So I'm looking forward to seeing her again. She's a good friend of mine as well. And seeing how that translates from being Sonoma State into junior college, because she's going to experience some things, but she's still true to herself. She's still that coach. And going down to College Marin, I know they're enthused to have her because she's going to really whip that program up. Taking that as players and as coaches, we motivate ourselves. What gets you out of bed? What gets you to go to the weight room at whatever time you want to go? What gets you to eat properly? What gets you to that classroom? I'm not going to sit here and tell you, "Hey, this is really important. I need to motivate you." No, screw that, man, because you know what? As a coach, I'm always trying to replace you. And that's the hard truth. I love you, but I'm always trying to find the better player. That's just the way it works. And as soon as you understand that, that will kick your ass to go. If you really want to do this, right? If you really want to compete and be the best that you can be, that's how I always looked at it. My teammates were always, I had two or three guys, whatever, push each other. That's how you're going to get better. I got kids that call me all the time, "Coach, how many players you got at first base?" I got an all conference player coming back. Does that scare you? Or you just think you're just going to walk in and it's recreational baseball? This is competitive. We're all trying to move up a little bit here. 5% of all high school athletes, men and women, ever going to play collegiately, dude. This is the apex. I'm going to treat you fair, treat you like a human being. I do care about you. But when we hit the field, man, dude next to you's got to push you, and it's your responsibility to push him too. You guys inspire each other, but you have to motivate yourself to go do that work. So that's what I took from America, man.
Yeah. What about things that you may not have felt were directly applicable from like a training session or drill slash activity work, but yet you were so intrigued, you were like, huh, I got to figure something out that gets me those same outcomes that they're getting. And from an example standpoint, the pool is right outside my office, and my basketball coach and I were in here the other day, and he's looking out and he's going, "Whoa, do you see what he's doing right there? We can do that, and it'll enhance what we got going on in the gym."
Absolutely. I think a lot of times too, you're limited to what you have available to you. So how do you modify certain things? So we're always observing. When I look across other teams and see what they're doing, it's like you're trying to stay up with the Joneses. It's like we don't have the pitch count and the little earpieces in baseball and calling plays. We're old school. Like I'll give you a sign, and what is this supposed to mean? Am I bunting? Am I stealing? So you try to improvise. What are the other teams are doing to get themselves in position to be a little bit more successful? What are the scouting reports saying? So you try to learn and you take little pieces that you think will apply for you in that sense. If you don't, you stop learning. And it's the same thing. It's like when we're looking at the other teams, we're observing. Baseball, it's one of those games where you constantly watch for things that guys are doing out there. Is there something I can pick up on them, what they're doing? Can we use that to our advantage? So we're always an observer, even when you don't think it. So subconsciously, but the one thing I always say is for athletes, and this is how we learn quite a bit, baseball players are great copycatters. I'll watch, you get on YouTube or social media and you see all these guys doing all these different swings, and sometimes it can be a little bit too much. I'm like, okay, you need to stop that. But we try to pick up things from each other and we share information that way. So I want to be this guy. I'm like, now you need to be you, but maybe we could pick something out of that.
Yeah.
So,
or all the protective gear that everybody has now with the sliding mitts and everything else, but we don't need to go there. Let's not too bad. What is, if you had to point at something in regards to failure as a lecturer, as a coach, as a sibling, whatever it might be, where you can point to it as a transformational moment in your life that has led you to be able to do what you're doing now in the way you're doing it?
failure is all around us, right? And that's how you learn. You learn from those mistakes and things that you wish you can go back. To me, that's my motivation. My coaching decisions or my player decisions, things that you reflect back on. So what did I do wrong there? Why did we end up in this position? So to just be reflective in it and to not overthink how bad, because losing a game sucks. It should suck. We should hate it. But that's the piece that gets you to practice a little bit more or practice a little bit more efficient, right? Because the winning piece is what we're all trying to attain. And that's the glory that, as a competitor, you want to get to. But there has never been a successful person who's never gone through all that without failure. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but how's that changed me? If I made mistakes in my life, yeah, 100%. 100%.
Right. We all have. And how do you take those moments and reduce them back to a speed bump, to quote you from before, so that you can learn from them? All right.
100%. Yeah. You try to not disasterize everything.
Yeah.
We go, oh my God, my world's coming to an end. Our body only knows what we tell it, right? So if I look at myself in the mirror and I go, I'm a piece of crap. I'm a piece of crap. I'm a piece of crap. Eventually my brain's going to think I'm a piece of crap. So the one thing I always tell the kids, I go, look, I said, before you leave the house, because I know you all like to get all prim and proper and looking good. Some of you don't have a problem saying I feel good and I look good and all that, but all of you don't like some of your failure. And that's where you got to go, hey, look, I struck out 3 times yesterday and I made an error. Okay, I'm going to do better today. I'm going to go take 10 extra reps today. I'm going to do that. And tell yourself that, and then subconsciously it sinks in. So it's that mental imagery. I said some things to the kids in a meeting and they literally take stuff and I forget. And that was a mistake. I made a thing and next thing they're out there doing it. And I'm like, you guys are killing me. So I know they're listening and they try to take the funny stuff. And so it's appreciative. And
that's awesome. Okay. Yeah. I want to maximize your time here in regards to what you professionally do. So you teach coaching education classes, and just you can rip through a couple of the titles, whatever those courses are. But I'm gonna put you on the spot here and give me the 5-minute takeaway of your entire semester work, at least the high notes, so people can learn from your coaching class without having to actually take your coaching class.
Well, honestly, it's a lecture class. I try to bring in guest speakers. I try to bring in coaches. I use it as a vessel to learn myself. And to me, it's free teaching. I teach a theory of coaching class, and this is where you put theory into practice. So a lot of the kids may not even have interest in coaching, but there's a lot of leadership, time management, you name it, that can be applicable to everybody's profession once they graduate from school. So it was very interesting when I began teaching this class, predominantly men in the class, right? Coaching sports, typically. Well, over the years, now it's about half and half. I have half women, half men taking the class. And the feedback I get from the students is awesome. I know I'm doing a good job because they tell me, because I always ask them, I go in my evaluations, don't say, if I'm a dickhead, tell me why I'm a dickhead. Don't just say, oh, he's a dickhead. Or if I'm doing something great, please explain so I can make it better. So always keeping an open mind, listening, observing, and having a good conversation with students. And that's the one thing they're so appreciative of, because I think what happens, there's no tests and there's no exams in this class because we're always testing exams. Hey, let's sit down and have a conversation. Let's talk about what's going on around us in our culture and our society today. Because the way I coached 10 years ago is not how I can coach today. Our language, the way we relate to each other. We got these cell phones and all these other things. And how do you mimic this and that and the other thing? And how high of a regard do we hold social media? Have you ever seen anybody strike out 4 times and post it on social media? Absolutely not. So you only see highlights. So how do we perceive this? So we have these discussions, and at the end of the day, there's a lot of truth. And I want, and this, if I can leave you with this, the one thing I want students to understand, and even my players, is that I don't want you to reverberate. I don't want you to say things because you think that's what I want to hear. I'll automatically fail your ass if you do that, because I know there's teachers that do that crap. So I try to show you both sides viewpoint. I always ask you to walk in another person's shoes. As a player, I try to walk in my coach's shoes. How is he managing this? As a coach, now I try to walk in my player's shoes. So having that perspective as a coach and as a player, I think will pay off dividends for you. And that's something I really, really stress with them. And I also want them to create their philosophy. And this philosophy is about you. It's who you are and who you want to be and how you want others to be involved with you in your program.
So what are the steps in that 5-second version for
Yeah,
coaches that are listening of creating your philosophy? What does that
absolutely.
look like? How do you do it? What should they be doing if they don't have it done? Why is it important? What's the elevator pitch on that piece? Because I don't think I really had one between year 1 and year 9 when I was leaving to take another job and I had to reconsider it because you're just playing it out every day. But 25 years of coaching, I probably put pen to paper 4 times.
It's a reflection, and it helps you. It's something you can reflect in the course of a season. Now, if you're first starting off or whatever, or if you've been coaching for many years and you didn't write anything down, start off with a few things. I start off right away. I want to have a winning season. I want to win a championship. I want our team to have a 3.0 GPA, right? I want you to go out in the community and treat others. All these wonderful things, right? And then it's a guideline. Hey, if shit hits the fan, how are we going to behave? How are we going to do all this? So it's basically a playbook for your program in a sense. Hey, no matter what's going on in the course of the season, let's be reflective. So I try to revisit it at least once through the course of the season. Like, where are we at right now? These are the things that we signed up to do. This is what we pledged and we all agreed to as a team that we're going to adhere to. So let's try to get back to this. And then putting pen to paper, I brought in my philosophy that I developed over the years, and I go, it's a little bit too much. I want to cut some. No, I'm serious. I want to cut some things out. Like it's a little bit above, beyond what guys are like. What? Size it down a little bit. Sometimes it expands. Sometimes it shortens up a little bit. So it just changes.
One of
And
my good buddies who has been on a few times, and the thing he said that I think captures that thought
yeah,
better than anything I've ever heard. As assistants, you're always collecting stuff for when you're in charge, right? You have your file box and you're
yes.
ready. And he's cut it in half and then cut it in half again. That's what you're doing.
Yep. 100%. 100%. 100%. And the one thing I learned about basketball, obviously, I was never very good at basketball. I'm 5'10", and my shot was terrible. But I observe a lot of basketball games over the years. And the thing, I think basketball is such a wonderful platform to learn how to coach because it's fast paced. You got to think quickly. It's very emotional. Everything comes down to the wire, it seems, dealing with high pressure situations. And then, so I look at that, and that's like a hyper focus of being in that moment in basketball. Baseball, there's a lot of anticipation that's involved because there's always this in between innings and the anxiousness. And so it's a lot slower pace in a sense with moments of intense, oh my God, what happened right there? So it's interesting how you manage that. And I love the fact, and this is something I know it's going off sidebar, but with athletes today, and I think what happens is everybody gets focused in on one sport, right? It's all this, you're going to play you for the rest of your life, and then you're going to go into college and play basketball, baseball. I get excited when a kid tells me, yeah, coach, I play football and I play baseball, or I play basketball and baseball or soccer, whatever. I'm like, thank goodness there's still some kids out there doing that. And as college coaches, we keep encouraging that. Please go do something else. Go fish.
Why do you think, thank you for saying that. This
Yeah.
is the biggest battle I have as a small school is we need everybody to play everything. And
Yes.
I'm constantly having to fight. It's not the right word, but fight
Okay.
for the truth
Yep.
versus the belief, right?
Mhm.
And so why do you think that so many of these kids believe what it is they believe and their parents when the reality is 9 out of 10 college coaches are like, no, I don't want you to specialize. I want multi-sport kids because of X, Y, and Z. Can you just go in on that for a minute? I'm actually got a meeting this afternoon with a kid who's
Yeah.
like trying to dial it back. And I'm like, no, that is not the right answer.
Yeah. It's what we sell people. It's what we're selling today. More and more schools, I hate to say this, and I don't want to just blame the government or our school system, but we're lacking so much in teacher education and physical education. The kids, they gravitate towards travel ball, right? And it's an opportunity for them to go out and play. What happens is, and I don't have all the answers, but everybody gets sucked into a dream. Everybody's going for the I said scholarships. I go, you're 15 years old. I go, stop watching the big time sports TVs. I go, that's not most of us. What do you love to do? You love to go out and play. You want to meet new people. You want to try different sports. Go do that. Go do that. Do I have one answer to explain it all? No, it's just the way the culture of sports has changed in our society. And so it's up to us, these podcasts, teacher education, coach education, to have these discussions. We don't want this anymore. Our kids are getting hurt. They're getting burnt out. We're losing more participants than we ever have. So changing that idea, one little, like you're going to have this meeting with this young man, changing one mind at a time. That's how it ended up this way in the first place, not get changed overnight.
And I don't want to sit down with my athletes and change their mind. There's a power differential that ultimately they want to please
Yeah.
coaches. I just want them to see the reality and then find their truth within that reality. And so if you're sitting here telling me in your conference there are 8 teams and all 8 of those dudes want multi-sport athletes, and at Sonoma State you guys recruited multi-sport kids and the rest of the CC2A did, if that's accurate, great, say that. If it's not, say actually I'm an outlier in that these days, because that's what I'm trying to present to
Yeah.
these athletes is this is what you're being sold by your travel team,
Mhm.
because that is their full-time job. They are trying to keep getting paid. The reality behind the curtain when you ask a college coach is, yeah, actually, I'd rather you be a seasonal guy because it's going to protect your body. So without me putting words in your mouth, you have a huge network of coaches. Like what percentage of them would you say, like legitimately, they are purposefully chasing kids with diverse backgrounds in regards to athletics?
Every coach I've ever talked to loves the multi-sport, and for various reasons, right? Different coaches, different techniques, everything exposes them to different processes. So the more they're exposed to different athletics or whatever it might be, but the better development they're going to have, and then you're also going to hopefully avoid those repetitive injuries that we do encounter.
Yeah, no doubt. I appreciate you sharing that. Last question. So, I always curious about growth mindset, right? In this world of polarized politics and
Sure.
positionality, and people are just in their echo chambers all the time. And so, you have to be active if you want to ever challenge your belief system, right? So, I just asked this, what is something you've most recently changed your mind on that was purposeful? I used to be on this side, and
Yeah,
now I'm here. And here's why. Here's what I examined. Here's what I got out of that. And I no longer believe what I once did.
sure. You know, I don't, in this political climate and whatnot, one thing that hasn't changed is just the way I treat people. And I'm not going to change that because that's who I am as a person. But I think that the one thing I've changed is how I communicate. I try to reach athletes in various modes that they like to be spoken to. But also, they've also got to meet me at a certain point too. So I'm not going to coach you through the phone, dude. We have that. So I think what's where you and I grew up, where it was a lot of one-on-one, a lot of face-to-face coaching, right? So bringing those kids back into that fold, and I think they want that because that's the feedback I hear. They want to, we're out of COVID now. We're not isolated with all this information technology that we've utilized over the years, but to bring them back in that scope. And I have a hard time with some of the kids. They're very timid. They don't like to speak out in front. I've got this really great kid. He is so quiet. I'm like, I tease them or I encourage them or whatever. You can't just stand there and not say anything. You're smart. You're robbing other people of what it's share your information. You could be quiet and shy. Everybody still needs to know who you are. I don't know, I'm just giving a platform for kids to feel comfortable in that environment and bring that out for them.
Yeah, no, I think it's super important because the landscape of communication, to your point, has changed. And everybody's got a computer in their pocket, right? Everybody's got a way to communicate where when we were growing up, you had the phone on the wall. And if you wanted to talk in the other room, you got the long extension cord, right? It wasn't like this stuff,
100%.
right? So I think it's important because many of the coaches come from our era. And you need to realize that it's different for these kids. Like they don't even have conversations with each other, let alone with adults. So how are you meeting them where they are? And I appreciate you sharing that piece of information. Coach, it's been great. I appreciate you coming on. Looking forward to seeing you play at some point if you ever come play MPC. Because as Rich will tell you, I try not to leave campus ever. But
Monterey Peninsula College.
yeah,
No, we're
yep.
going to be down there in February. We're going to play Dan Phillips. Dan and I were teammates.
Oh, I love that. Danny's been on the pod. Go listen to his
Yeah.
episode.
Yeah. We were both Cossacks.
Hey, there we go. Looking forward to seeing you when we get down here.
Good man.